Right now, if someone compliments you unexpectedly, your face might turn red. You didn't choose that. You can't stop it either. It's one of the strangest things your body does automatically. And it's ancient. Older than language. Older than clothing. Older than fire. So why does the human body do this? Why do we blush at all? And why can't we just stop it, even when we desperately want to? You can take deep breaths, think calming thoughts. Nothing works. To find out, we have to go back. Way, way back. Not to ancient Rome. Not even to the first humans. We have to go back before Homo sapiens existed at all. Blushing depends on blood vessels widening just beneath the skin. This mechanism is tied to something called the sympathetic nervous system. Scientists believe the system evolved millions of years before humans walked the earth. Early mammals needed instant physical reactions to threats and social pressure alike. A racing heart, wider blood vessels, a body ready to respond. Blushing may simply be a leftover side effect of that ancient wiring. Think about that. Your embarrassment might trace back to survival instincts. Even reptiles show basic versions of stress-related blood flow changes. But true facial blushing, visible and social, appears almost exclusively in humans. That's a strange evolutionary detail worth sitting with for a moment. Somewhere along the way, one species turned a stress response into a social signal. Now picture early human ancestors living in small, tightly bonded groups. Social standing mattered enormously. Exile meant almost certain death. Some researchers believe visible emotional signals helped groups function smoothly. A blush could show submission, honesty, awareness of a social mistake. There's one problem with hiding your feelings in a small group. Everyone notices anyway. So a visible involuntary signal may have actually built trust faster. Imagine trying to lie to your entire community with no privacy at all. No separate houses, no closed doors. Constant, unavoidable social observation. In that world, an honest, uncontrollable signal wasn't a weakness. It was efficient. It saved time. It prevented drawn-out conflicts over hidden intentions. Charles Darwin himself found this fascinating centuries later. In 1872, he published a book called The Expression of the Emotions. He called blushing the most peculiar and most human of all expressions. That's a bold claim, but he had a good reason for it. Darwin noticed something strange. Animals show fear, anger, even affection. But almost no other species blushes the way humans do. He argued blushing required something specific: self-awareness, concern for others' opinions. In other words, you need to know you're being watched. That single requirement fascinated Darwin more than almost anything else he studied. He even wrote letters to people worldwide, asking whether their cultures blushed too. The answers came back remarkably consistent across wildly different societies and climates. Blushing appeared to be a shared, universal human trait, not a cultural habit. Here's what makes this actually matter far more than old theories. Darwin was essentially describing something science wouldn't fully explain for over a century. Blushing isn't just physical, it's deeply, uniquely social. Let's jump forward now to ancient Rome, around the 1st century. Roman writers already noticed blushing carried social meaning. The philosopher Seneca wrote about blushing as involuntary, uncontrollable, and deeply human. He argued even wise, disciplined people couldn't fully suppress it. That idea unsettled people back then. It still does today. Nobody likes feeling like their body can betray their thoughts. But here's the thing. That betrayal might actually be the whole point. A blush is hard to fake. That's exactly what made it useful. If you could control it perfectly, it would lose all its meaning. Other Roman writers noticed something else. Powerful leaders rarely blushed in public. Some scholars at the time saw this as proof of strength and discipline. Others quietly suspected something different. Maybe some people simply hide it better. Either way, the debate reveals something timeless. Blushing has always felt significant. Fast forward again to Victorian England in the 1800s. Blushing became almost obsessively documented during this era. Etiquette books describe blushing as proof of modesty and good character. Young women were sometimes even praised specifically for blushing easily. Meanwhile, doctors debated whether blushing indicated weakness or moral sensitivity. Nobody had real answers yet. They only had opinions and assumptions. Actual scientific explanations wouldn't arrive until the 20th century. Some Victorian doctors even prescribed strange remedies to reduce visible blushing. Cold compresses, herbal tonics, breathing exercises meant to calm the nerves. None of it addressed the real biological cause hiding underneath the surface. They were treating a symptom without understanding the system producing it. In the 1980s, researchers finally began studying blushing under laboratory conditions. Psychologist Mark Leary conducted groundbreaking work on social anxiety and blushing. His studies confirmed something important. Blushing consistently follows perceived social exposure, not just embarrassment. Any moment where you feel suddenly, intensely visible, being watched, being praised, even being unexpectedly noticed in a crowd. Your brain doesn't distinguish much between these triggers. It just reacts. Leary's team ran experiments involving public speaking, sudden praise, and mild social pressure. Across nearly every scenario, blushing followed the same underlying pattern precisely. Perceived visibility, not the specific emotion, triggered the physical response reliably. That was a major shift in how psychologists understood the entire phenomenon. There's a problem with that explanation, though. It's not complete. Blushing alone doesn't explain why the reaction feels so immediate, so uncontrollable. For that, scientists needed to look directly at brain activity. Modern neuroscience found something remarkable using brain imaging technology. When people blush, activity spikes in a region called the amygdala. This almond-shaped structure processes fear, threat, and emotional intensity. Your amygdala doesn't fully separate physical danger from social danger. Being laughed at can trigger something surprisingly similar to being chased. That's why blushing often accompanies a racing heart and sudden sweating. Your body isn't overreacting randomly, it's using an ancient alarm system. An alarm system built for lions, now triggered by awkward silences. Modern fMRI studies confirm this connection repeatedly across different research groups. The amygdala activates within milliseconds, long before conscious thought even registers embarrassment. By the time you notice you're blushing, your brain already triggered everything. You're essentially watching the aftermath of a decision your brain already made. Some scientists half-jokingly call it your face's honesty report, submitted without your consent. Researchers also discovered something surprising about who blushes the most. People with higher social awareness tend to blush more frequently, not less. In other words, blushing isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of connection. Highly empathetic people often show stronger blushing responses during social studies. Think about that. Blushing might reflect emotional intelligence, not embarrassment alone. Studies on emotional contagion support this idea even further. People who blush easily also tend to detect other people's emotions faster. That correlation isn't random. Both traits seem to draw from similar neural circuits. Psychologists sometimes describe this as heightened social sensitivity, not fragility. In a strange way, an easily blushing face might signal a finely tuned social brain. Now here's where this connects to something much bigger than red cheeks. Blushing isn't a flaw in human design, it's a communication tool. Long before written language existed, humans needed instant emotional signals. A blush says, "I care what you think," without a single word. It says, "I know I made a mistake," faster than any apology. Some researchers argue this made early human cooperation significantly easier to manage. Groups that could read subtle emotional cues avoided unnecessary conflict more often. Trust builds faster when dishonesty becomes physically difficult to hide. That single evolutionary advantage may have shaped early human social structures profoundly. Some anthropologists even argue this helped larger, more complex societies eventually form. Bigger groups need faster trust-building tools since not everyone knows each other personally. An honest, visible emotional signal scales surprisingly well, even among total strangers. This idea connects directly back to those early ancestors living in tight groups. A visible, honest signal helped maintain fragile social bonds under pressure. Modern life removed the constant threat of exile or violence, but the ancient wiring behind that instinct stayed exactly the same. That's why thousands of years after Darwin first studied it, you still blush during a simple compliment. So now, the full picture. It started deep in evolutionary history, tied to ancient survival reactions. It continued through early human social groups, where trust meant survival. Through Darwin, calling it the most human expression of all. Through Roman philosophers, unsettled by its uncontrollable honesty. Through Victorian society, obsessing over its supposed moral meaning. Through modern psychologists like Mark Leary, mapping its social triggers precisely. And finally, into modern neuroscience labs, tracing it straight to the amygdala. All of it explains why right now, an unexpected compliment can turn your face red. Your body isn't malfunctioning. It's running code written millions of years ago. Think about it. Every blush is a tiny piece of ancient survival wiring. An ancestor signaling honesty around a fire, and you, blushing during a video call, share the exact same mechanism. Only the situations around that mechanism have changed almost completely. There's something strangely beautiful about that. We spend so much energy trying to appear calm, composed, unreadable. But our own skin quietly reveals the truth anyway. Maybe that's not a weakness in being human. Maybe it's part of what makes us human. If this made you see your own reactions a little differently, you might enjoy exploring more stories like this one.